It's the Daily Beat on KBay 103.9. How you doing? I'm Ben Shields. Got Dakota Morrissey. He is the news editor at dailytrib.com. And Dakota, let's do another one. It's our first Daily Beat of April. Can you believe we're already through the first quarter?
Man, I don't even want to talk about it. It's just flying by.
To me, when you get older, time really flies by. When you were a kid, it seemed to go by so slow at a snail's pace. Now it's like a rabbit. Time really flies.
I grew up 20 minutes from the beach, and I thought that was an eternity when I was a little kid. I was like, you're telling me we're going to be in the car for 20 whole minutes? And now, I can't even imagine, that'd be awesome to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing how things like that, your perspective changes as you get older. All right, Dakota, so we've got news to talk about. First off, Marble Falls ISD recently announced that they're going to be making some cuts. So
yes.
Why did MFISD have to make cuts, and what kind of cuts are they making?
Well, to put it as simple as possible, because it's not simple at all, is they are cutting about 35 to 40 positions from the budget. So they're not just letting people go, they're eliminating these positions. They won't be replaced. And they're doing that, just simply put, because they don't have the money to pay them. They're going into this year, they had they just didn't see the money they needed from the state, and I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Essentially, they didn't have the money, and they decided, if we want to keep everybody, we need to make some cuts. So they eliminated $900,000 from the budget this year, just to say, okay, we can get rid of this much. And then they intentionally adopted a $1 million deficit budget, meaning they were going to have to pull about $1 million from their reserves just to get through this year before anything happens, right? And then on top of that, they still didn't have enough money. So they did what, this was last November. I'm not sure if you remember, they had an election to try to raise the tax rate by 2.67 cents.
What do they call a VADER, I believe?
The VADER. It stands for a voter-approved tax rate election. And what that VADER was is, hey, we want to increase the tax rate by 2.67%. We do that, we'll raise about $2.2 million, and that'll allow us to just maintain. We won't have to cut anybody. That vote failed in November, about 54% to 46%, if I'm doing my math right. And
I think you are.
Yeah. Because of that failure of that vote, that meant they were in the hole about $2.2 million, right?
Right.
And that they had to take the money from somewhere. And really, a school district is mostly paying staff, and that it had to come out of staff. So that was where the 35 to 40 positions came from.
And I've been reading, too, it's not only just Marble Falls ISD, but other school districts throughout the state are having some budget shortfalls as well.
Yeah, we try to keep things local here, but really what's happening is the state legislature, is responsible for something called the annual student allotment, which has been the same amount since 2019. It's $6,160. That's basically the amount of money the state gives you per student in your school district so that you can run. Hey, that's about how much it takes to educate a kid for a year. That number's been the same, but inflation's gone up by about 27%, which I was shocked when I found that statistic.
Insane.
Yeah. So long story short, inflation from COVID times, stagnant funding from the state, and the failure of that vote all sort of created a perfect storm for them to have to make these cuts. And that's teachers, secretaries, paraprofessionals, high-end administrators. It's not like and they're all essential positions,
Right.
MFISD, I didn't realize this is the largest employer in Burnet County. And so, 35 to 40 positions, they could still function, without that. But they were doing a job, and now that job's not being done. Yeah.
All right, you can read more about these cuts, dailytrib.com. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? dailytrib.com/subscribe. Okay, so the quarry turns.
Yes.
We've got more quarry news. It's back and forth, back and forth. What is it this week?
Before we get into it, I just want to say the level of communication going on around this quarry is crazy. I haven't seen it before. There's almost daily updates, it seems like. Just to recap, the quarry, big proposed rock crushing quarry operation out off of
Hoover Valley Road.
Hoover Valley Road outside of Burnet, Inks Lake State Park, Longhorn Caverns. A lot of people against it. So if you remember, the TCEQ approved an air quality permit back in February saying, you know what, this is going to be fine for the air. Go ahead and do the rock crushing plant. And then a bunch of people filed motions to overturn that ruling, and those motions were then assessed by the TCEQ, and an organization that is called the Office of Public Interest Counsel. So what this is a group that is built into the TCEQ whose whole job it is to make sure this is in the public interest. So they're separate from everything, and they decide, hey, is this worth looking into? So what happened was they said, actually, this permit is probably not as fleshed out as it should be, and it should be kicked back to be addressed again, and you shouldn't approve it. And that leaves us in this limbo where we have until May or so for a decision to be made. The TCEQ could say, we're not going to listen to you. We're going to do it we're going to approve it anyway. Or they can overturn their decision and cause the applicant to have to reapply and do a better job.
All right, so this quarry story keeps on evolving.
Yeah.
Make sure you're up to date. Follow at dailytrib.com. Again, dailytrib.com/subscribe. All right, Dakota, I want to talk about our own Suzanne Freeman. She was a longtime news editor at dailytrib.com before you were.
Yes.
Now she's the editor of the Picayune magazine, and she is releasing a book, and I know she's really proud of it, and we're proud of her too. So what's this book that Suzanne is releasing?
Well, it's about the hidden history of Burnet County. You know, this is sort of a shameless shout out to Suzanne, who's kind of like a mentor to me. I learned a lot from her. And she probably knows more about Burnet County history than most people.
She knows a lot.
She knows a lot, and she's worked really hard. She's releasing this book. And what I think is cool is when you live in a small area like this, it's not like Texas history. You know, everybody can read about Texas history. Everybody can read about, you know, United States history. But to be from this small community and have a whole book dedicated to your background, I think is really cool. And it takes somebody like Suzanne to kind of go out and put it all together so that we can all benefit from it.
And she was able to grab a lot of the stories from the Picayune as well, correct?
Yeah, she wrote a lot of them, and she had kind of already documented Burnet County, but in little bits and pieces. And now you have a whole book dedicated to the history that if you were to pick that thing up and read it, I think you'd be surprised about, you know, to really learn about your community, your history, your area.
All right, so I know she's got some book signings and a book release coming up, so you can find out all about that. dailytrib.com. Good job, Suzanne. All right, Dakota, we'll do this again next week, okay? Anything else you want to add before we say goodbye?
No, man, just thanks for having me.
All right, it's been fun. This is The Daily Beat. We'll talk to you next week on KBay 103.9.